get out of tutorial hell. Who started that phrase? Tutorial hell. It makes it sound like as if when you do tutorials that it's bad. Tutorials are supposed to help you. In this video, we got Chris Sean, 114,000 subscribers. I followed Chris Sean every once in a while, so it's nice to see his take. But let's see what he's talking about. Get out of tutorial hell. Stop buying tutorials. I mean, do people buy tutorials nowadays? I mean, I know people buy courses. You know, this tutorial hell thing, I want to see what this is about because it could be a little bit annoying. I mean, you do gotta study as a developer. So let's figure this out. Let's go, Chris.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to another video. This is Chris Sean. Welcome to the channel. If y'all don't know anything about me, I am in tech. I've been in tech for about 6 years now. I was a front-end JavaScript developer for about 5 years of my career. And the last year and a half, I've been a developer advocate, and I'm never going back. I love it. Actually, now I work primarily in Python and as a back-end developer. Oh. And it's been a fun ride. Anyway.
My bad. Maybe a developer advocate actually does code. Chris, tell me what a developer advocate does, because I cannot understand this.
The reason I'm sharing my experience is because I've been through exactly what this video is about, which is tutorial help. And one thing that I've noticed after meeting with so many different people who want to do one-on-one mentorships, and people who signed up on my one-on-one mentorships that have in the description, I meet with about 3 to 4 people a week now. As my channel has been growing, it's been growing to about 5 people per week. And one thing that I've noticed with a lot of people is how dependent they are on tutorials. It's scary and sad because I know exactly how you feel. I've been through that situation. And the reason I'm making this video right now is because I met with someone just a couple days ago. And this person lives in a different country. This person lives in, I believe, New Zealand. And one thing they shared with me was, yeah, Chris, I really like using tutorials. I feel like tutorials beat around the bush way too much. They make these tutorials very long because they want to keep you on the course as long as possible and to subscribe to future courses with them. And I told them that's very true. That's exactly what I felt when I was going through tutorial help.
You know, for a channel that I actually do tutorials, you know, I don't think it's people do it for watch time. I know when I create tutorials, I actually literally just, these are tutorials of things that I've struggled with or things that I've seen figured out. And I'm like, oh, I want to show people how to do this. So I don't think the problem is tutorials. I do recall a time where, you know, people do feel very reliant on tutorials, but I would tell you there are tutorials that have really saved my ass. So like, I mean, you cannot say get out of tutorial help completely because there are tutorials that have really helped me. The only problem is I feel like if you're just stuck on, you have to know what you're looking for. If you're just like randomly, oh, let me grab a tutorial on that. Let me grab a tutorial on that. If that's probably not the best. But if you can go in order and you know what you want out of your stack and what you're trying to learn next and what that little thing is you have to figure out and then there's a tutorial on it. I mean, to me, that's not hell. That's tutorial heaven.
And what he told me was, yeah, I actually tend to go straight to documentation because I feel like I learn faster rather than just waiting for someone to explain one concept in 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah. But you know what? A lot of that documentation is garbage. A lot of documentation is trash. I mean, like literally go to React.js right now. And I love React. Oop, it went to React Go. That's wrong. What is React Go? React.js. React.js. And I'm a React fan actually. But go to tutorial. The first thing they have here, ironically, are like you know, rendering classes and almost no one right now in React, people use functional components. I mean, you go through this tutorial and honestly, sometimes these tutorials are, and I'm sorry for not trying to criticize, but a lot of documentation on language is trash, and that's why you need tutorials.
I understand it in a few minutes. If not, just Google it and go Stack Overflow. And when this person
Stack Overflow, if anything, Stack Overflow is hell. Stack Overflow is the worst. I will never pick Stack Overflow over tutorial. I have a vendetta against Stack Overflow. I can barely ask questions because they ban me all the time. Second of all, people post crappy code. Third of all, people are bougie and like so narcissistic and they judge you, you know, like, oh, you didn't know how to do this. Like, why are you asking this question? Like people just, you know, Stack Overflow, you know what? So I do not urge people to use Stack. Now, sometimes it's nice to pick up a little something from Stack Overflow, but that should not be like your main method of learning.
Told me this, I told him straight to their face, you are a unicorn. because I am so discouraged when I meet so many people who think tech isn't for them or they want to give up. A lot of them tell me that they can't even study code for 2 months, they give up. But this person that I'm speaking to straight up said, I don't really like to use online tutorials. I like to go through documentation. And I told them, because of that, make sure when you interview at your first job, you tell them that you don't like to use tutorials, like you've seen a lot of people do. You'll learn more from documentation. That will help you land a job. That shows their potential. And it's huge. And that blew my mind, because everyone out there that I speak to are completely dependent on video tutorials. And don't let that be you. That was me for 3 or 4 years of my career, because I never did well in college, because I never did well in school.
So don't rely on tutorials. Don't rely on someone who's been through it showing you how to do something. I don't know. People talk about people have angles. Like, Chris, do you have an angle out of saying don't use because you have a mentorship? I mean, which is cool. I mean, if you're trying to say, like, take my mentorship because I think it's going to be better than tutorials, I think that's fine. But to try to tell developers, like, oh, don't do tutorials because they're hell, but, you know, what's better is mentorship, you know, which is fine. Mentorship is fine, but you need tutorials. You need to practice. I mean, what else is out there? And I do think there are better things, and I can get to that later, but like courses are great, but you can't only rely on documentation. And if you can learn from documentation, that's great, but
I just assumed that video tutorials was the only way to really learn. Of course, my first 2 years in tech, I had no one mentor me at all. Only when I went to my first mid-level position, I finally had a mentor. And so for my first 2 years in tech, I was just on my own, and I only thought video tutorials was the only way. There was no one giving me advice on how to learn. We need to stop that. I'm not saying tutorials are bad. They're not. But they're really bad when it becomes something that you're utterly dependent on. And I'm going to tell you this, longer to advance technically, because I was so dependent on using Udemy courses, using Treehouse courses. Heck, I use ZeroMastery.io, link in the description below. You don't have to use it. But I use that to learn Python, but now it's not the only thing I use. I depend on documentation now. I depend on technical blog posts, which teach you so much more in a video. I learned so much more from a technical blog post that tells me how to build something in Python than to watch a 10-hour video on how to build a simple to-do list in Python, if that makes sense. So,
I mean, the technical blog posts are good. I find them, they're cool. What's the difference between a technical blog post and a tutorial? I mean, you know, it's showing you how to do something. It's a technical blog. Oh, maybe he means like more high level. I do think we do need more high level tutorials, or just like high level conversations, concepts about coding. That I agree with. That's helpful.
Oh, I'm done with ranting. Let me give you a few steps on how you can end this tutorial hell and stop depending on some tutorials and get ready to cancel your memberships. Don't tell them I told you this. Number one, I think first you need to evaluate the actual tutorials you have. The amount of tutorials you use. For me personally, I have like 10 tutorials in Udemy, and if I completed maybe, actually no, I've completed 0 tutorials in my life, but I completed like half of a few of them, if that makes sense. I just buy tutorials thinking they're everything I need, and that's it. So now what I do, for example, I work as a backend developer, working primarily with data engineering, etc. I didn't know what DBT was. I didn't know how to work with it. I need to understand it. I need to learn how to work with Airflow as well, which is an orchestrator when you write your ETL, ELT pipelines. So when I need to learn something, for example, DBT, all right, I'll buy a course in DBT. I'm gonna learn it. It's only 10 hours long. I'm gonna learn that and double the speed. I'm gonna take about 3 hours, 4 hours tops, maybe 5 hours to learn the whole course. But I'm going through that course with a goal. I'm going through that course because I really need to understand how to work with DBT. How does DBT work in the first place? And the same thing with Airflow. I have the intention of completing it and what exactly I need to learn. And if I learn everything I need to learn within a tutorial without even completing it, and then move on. That's it. But thinking that I need to complete the whole thing to understand that technology, no, it's not true at all. Actually, you can just use documentation, or you can find other resources.
I mean, this is tricky. I mean, you know, you do find tutorials. It's hard because the course will cover a lot, and sometimes you do just need something. Sometimes some stuff is outdated in the course. Some stuff is not really needed. That I find to be one of the most difficult things, is like that code is always evolving, and sometimes the way someone did something in something is no longer relevant, or also it's not needed, or the workaround they did is not the way that's going to work for you. So there's like a lot of things like that. But he said cancel memberships, but he's still using Udemy.
Somewhere else. So number one, evaluate your courses. And secondly, how many courses are you actually using? Are you subscribed to, let's say, Treehouse, and then I don't know what other online courses are there? Do you need to be subscribed to multiple online courses? Do you need to continuously buy a new course every single month, every single week, just because of the sale? No. And to be honest, I feel like if you have 100 courses on Udemy, 50, 20, 30, you name it, you just feel overwhelmed and you don't even know where to start. So number three, but really focus on what it is that you want to learn. If it's job.
That I agree with, which is basically, I do think you definitely don't want to have random tutorials. I think if you have a stack that you want to learn, and focus on that stack. I think if you try to say, oh, I want to do Web3 and I want to do, NFT and I want to try, oh, there's some Ruby, just get your stack, figure out if you want to be front end, back end, you want to do mobile apps, you want to do web apps, you want to do websites, choose your stack and then go dive deep into that stack. And then if you go to Udemy, if you go to any of these courses, just focus on the course path that deals with that. Definitely, I don't agree that you don't want to have like your hands all over the place. That's definitely, I guess that'll be tutorial help.
JavaScript, focus on just JavaScript. Don't move on to anything else. If it's a React, focus on React.
That I agree. Absolutely.
Center, you name it.
100%.
So, last but not least, practice. The more you use something, the better you become at it, right? Rather than just continually depending on a video tutorial to learn something, try to build something. When you get stuck, Google it. You get stuck, go join my Discord and ask for help, or someone else's Discord. You get stuck, go to Stack Overflow. You name it, anywhere to get help. That is what will make you a better developer. Not sticking to a video tutorial non-stop, course after course after course, day after day after day, but actually building and failing is what will make you better at using that technology.
I mean, I hear this argument a lot, but like, I feel like, listen, in the end, when you're learning something, it's hard. I think people expecting it to be easy, and I get it. Sometimes I'm learning something, I'm banging my head against the wall, but like, that's what learning is about. Don't say this is trash because it's difficult. If you want to be a developer, if you want to do anything, if you want to play the piano, if you want to, go into whatever field you want to go into, it takes time and it takes practice. So don't blame that. Now you have to focus yourself, but in the end, you have to suffer a little bit to learn, and that's what it is. So don't blame the tutorials. I think like just figure out what you want to focus on and focus on it.
Anyway, this is just a quick video I really wanted to make. I hope this helps you out. Get out of tutorial help. Don't just depend on that. Don't just depend on courses. Learn, fail, build things, and fail again. But anyway, thank you for watching. This is Krishan. This is the life of a developer. And I'll see y'all at the next video. Peace.
All right, well, let me see. Is he actually going to promote this, his mentorship at the bottom, one-on-one mentorship at the bottom, which is, look, it's absolutely fine. You know what I mean? But like, if this is a way of, this is one thing I think like Gary Vee talks about a lot, which is like, just be sincere. Like I see a lot of these videos, if you're pitching something and then you're trying to use people taking tutorials as a scapegoat to promote some other thing. I don't think that's cool because you know what? Guess what with your mentor? Your mentor's not going to make you learn. Your mentor's not going to do the work for you. Your mentor's not going to like pour code in your brain. They're going to give you some direction. So if anything, I actually don't think mentorship, hot take, is that great. I do think making connections is good. Being a part of a group, I think, is really, really important. If anything, more important than mentorship. Being a part of a group of people who are all learning at the same time. But I think focus on your stack. Tutorial is not hell. If whatever tutorial you need to practice and then use it to gain the knowledge and do it over and over. Build things, definitely, and then be part of a group. But I think coding is difficult, and I think that's the way it is.